Tonight's panel is basically starting a business while you're a student at Carnegie Mellon. A number of people are able to do that. A number of people aren't able to do that. So tonight you're going to hear the pros and cons and the difficulties of doing it. All of the people on our panel have done it or are doing it currently, and they're going to tell you their experiences. My main job tonight, other than welcoming you, thank you for being here, and thanking the panel, is to introduce Steve. Steve Fleck is going to be moderating the panel this evening, and he is a 04 graduate from the Etcetera School, and I've had the pleasure of working with Steve in founding his company and being on the board during that whole period of time, so I'm pretty familiar with what he's been able to do. He's founder of ClearCount Medical Solutions, which was launched during his tenure here at the Etcetera School. And basically, ClearCount has developed and deploys the world's first FDA-approved RFID solution for a platform dealing with patient safety in a hospital system. ClearCount has raised technology-based economic development funding. They've done some bootstrapping, they've done SBIRs, they've done angel funding, and they've done venture funding over this period of time. And so he's been through the whole process. The company itself has been recently featured in Time magazine, named as Wired magazine's 10 best uses for RFID, runner-up in this year's Wall Street Journal Technology Awards category, and selected the 2009 winner of Best of What's New by Popular Science. So without further ado, Steve Fleck.
Thank you all. Welcome to Global Entrepreneurship Week, and welcome to our panel. Our panel's title today is Starting a Company as a Student at Carnegie Mellon. As Art just informed you, I was lucky enough to be able to do that while I was here at the Etcetera School from 03 to 04. But we have a very distinguished and diverse panel of entrepreneurs who have also done this. And as I think, as you get more familiar with the CMU community, you'll understand that this is actually something that's not too uncommon. There's every year a lot of businesses spin out of Carnegie Mellon. I think the statistic I saw was an average of 3 per year, if that's correct.
Well, it's really more like 10 to 15 total.
Okay.
But the student-generated component is probably more like 5 or plus. 5
okay.
Plus.
So it's very exciting. We're very honored to have this distinguished panel to kind of pick their brains and understand a little bit about what their experiences were while at CMU. Just a quick 30-second background of my own connection with Carnegie Mellon. I actually was introduced to the idea of entrepreneurship at CMU well before I attended school here. My brother actually attended Carnegie Mellon and spun out a business back in 1995, a software company, which he was able to exit and sell to a company here in Pittsburgh called Management Science Associates. So maybe it was a bit of sibling rivalry that I felt like I was challenged to come back and do it myself. Unfortunately, he was able to do it bootstrapping it, as many of these entrepreneurs have, whereas ClearCount's had to raise over $8 million of capital. So that's a long, painful lesson in fundraising there. But you know, before I came to CMU, I was vaguely aware of the success stories. You hear about some of the big ones in recent years, Red Zone, some companies like Molly's Trolleys. I saw the trolley parked right outside here. That's another CMU connection there, Plextronics. So you hear about the success stories, but you don't really hear about just how many diverse different companies there really are. As Art said, 10 to 15 per year. It's pretty incredible and pretty impressive. So without further ado, I'd like to get to the panel to sort of pick their brains and understand you know, what makes Carnegie Mellon different and unique, and what really breeds success here at CMU as compared to sort of the general population of entrepreneurs. So with that being said, I'd like to go down the panel, maybe start here with Bryan, and briefly introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your company and what it is that you do and your connection to Carnegie Mellon.
Thanks, Steve. My name is Bryan Kaplan. I'm the Vice President of Operations and co-founder for a company called Collaborative Fusion. Collaborative Fusion is a software and technology company primarily focusing on the management of personnel during disasters. Our systems are in use around the country to help mobilize personnel, assets, resources, and track them during disasters. So, for example, during Hurricane Katrina or incidents like that, our systems help locate individuals who might be able to respond and provide assistance, and then help mobilize them to the locations. I am a graduate of the undergrad program here at Carnegie Mellon in 2002, and I think that, we'll talk a little more about it later, but I think that Carnegie Mellon really gave a good foundation for me in terms of entrepreneurship, and the lessons I was able to learn here were really applicable out in the software world.
Great, thank you. Nathan?
My name is Nathan Martin. I'm the CEO of a local software company called Deep Local. Formerly, I was a researcher at the Studio for Creative Inquiry, which is an art and technology research lab here that probably none of you know of. We are primarily a consulting company. We develop innovative marketing campaigns, sometimes for large brands, and we work underneath a lot of ad agencies nationally and internationally, and then we develop a few of our own products that have recurring revenue. Mostly, we try to keep a really cool culture going on so that we have artists and interesting engineers coming through our company as fast as possible. So more than anything, we're a culture.
Great, thanks. Jessica?
Jessica Trybus. I'm founder of a company called Etcetera Edutainment. I actually did a lot of work in the Entertainment Technology Center, if that's a department you guys are familiar with. My work is around using video games for learning and why that works. And Etcetera Edutainment delivers game-based training to the industrial safety market. Essentially, you have millions of workers, even in this country, in utilities, manufacturing, construction, healthcare, that are still being trained in a very passive way, meaning lectures or videos, and then they go into these dangerous jobs and they're expected to perform safely. Well, it's not working. It's causing companies to the tune of $170 billion a year because of these incidents. So we're basically trying to take the proven effectiveness of flight simulation and deliver it through video games as an accessible and affordable way to provide more effective training.
Great. And David?
Hi, my name is David Chen. I'm actually currently a student at Carnegie Mellon, and I study human-computer interaction and information systems. I'm a senior. I'm a co-founder and the CEO of a company called Fooala. We provide restaurant e-commerce solutions. Basically what we do is, currently if you're a restaurant and you want to start a online ordering service, you're limited to your own website or a virtual food court. And we make it possible for restaurants to connect with various existing virtual food courts, mobile applications, and also their own website, and basically start an affiliate network around their online ordering services so more consumers are exposed to it. Our company started with Project Olympus, which is sort of a business incubator within the School of Computer Science. And we just recently graduated from the Alpha Lab Business Incubator, which is part of InnovationWorks. I've been starting businesses for about roughly a decade. I started my first business when I was 11 years old, and I've been starting many, many businesses since then. My most recent business before Fooala was a company called SpreeBB, which is one of the top 50 websites in South Korea, and it's a discussion forum hosting service.
Okay, we have to ask, everybody's wondering, what was the company when you were 11 years old?
My first company it's actually related to video game content, so
Okay.
I helped people who develop content about video games to create websites and monetize those websites using advertising.
Great. Very important. So we're going to do a panel discussion for about 15 minutes, I think, and then we're going to break it out into open Q&A. So first question for you guys, and I think we'll start at the opposite end with David this time. We talk a lot in business school curriculum about market-focused solutions and staying close to the customer. And all of you are young entrepreneurs, exceptionally young entrepreneurs in some cases. Many or most of you were students while you started your company. So I wanted you to talk a little bit about how do you do that? How do you stay close to the customer? And how do you really know your market and be a student at the same time?
Okay. Basically, all the companies that I've developed have been primarily software companies, and we employ a philosophy of developing quickly and releasing small iterations and getting feedback as soon as possible from customers. This way, we actually create software that people want to use instead of software that we think people want to use. That's one of the most common mistakes, I think, is for especially those of us that have technology backgrounds. We like to, sit in a room or talk with friends and say, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could create this technology service or product that would do, some technical thing. And it may sound great, but it's not necessarily there's not necessarily a market for that service or product. So by getting it out there as soon as possible, you're able to get some feedback and actually develop your product or service into something that is feasible to market. And doing this as a student, fortunately for internet-based companies, it's much easier because you don't have to necessarily make face-to-face contact in developing relationships with your customers. A lot of it can be conducted virtually. For Fooala, we actually had to go out and go talk to restaurants. We currently have about 80 restaurants in Pittsburgh, Washington, D.C., and Philadelphia who are working with us. And we actually do go out and visit the restaurants in person. It's pretty tough as a student to do that, but it's possible.
It's great. Jessica?
Well, it's just really important to be really, really close to the customer. We started the company by going out and getting contracts because I knew, coming from Carnegie Mellon, that we could build you the best, biggest featured, craziest multiplayer game that, because we're training people to go to Pixar and Electronic Arts and Ubisoft. And so, for us, it's important to, Alcoa, as some people know, was one of our first big clients, and if I could have slept over at the loading docks, I would have. We hang out with a lot of safety people, a lot of union people. I'm trained to operate a forklift, trained in a lot of the safety areas, and just spend as much time trying to immerse yourself in that world and understanding at the end of the day, what are you solving? And always focus on that is what I try to share with my team, because you cannot develop, I can't develop anything in a vacuum. So it's just, that's the #1 lesson that I've learned. Stay really close to your customer.
Great, Nathan.
I wasn't a student when I started my company. I was an artist in residence here. And I'm old, I'm 32, so I appreciate the young thing. I'll stick to that. I'm young. But the thing that we do, the thing that makes us very distinct is I used to run an art group for about 10 years, about a decade, an internationally exhibited art group, and before that I ran a band since I was 16 years old. And I learned really quickly, and it's the reason I work a lot with artists and theater people who can meet deadlines. Similar to what David said, it's really critical to iterate very quickly, to fail very quickly, and to try very quickly. When I actually spun out of the university, I spent the first year listening to a lot of business advice from local seasoned entrepreneurs, and I failed to commercialize a technology I'd spent 3 to 5 years working on, which was an online mapping piece of software. I sort of was frustrated at that point, had burnt through the economic development money I had, sort of threw the advice aside and said, okay, I know how to organize a group of people to get stuff done, so let's figure that out. And from there I started to bootstrap my company and realized that just like staying very customer focused, you have to deliver things on time that are cool and great. I knew we had technologists, but we had to think about how we were going to build a business. So I did that really by the DIY approach to things, running it just like a band. And my company right now is run just like a band. This morning we had Waffle Wednesdays, where we invite anyone into our office to have waffles and free consulting. And from that we build up clients like Nike and Volkswagen. Very little things that you do sort of incubate a culture. Staying close to your customer clearly with web-based software. We have a few products. We are very immersed in those industries. We join the associations that sort of speak to those industries. We market ourselves to the magazines that attack those industries. Very much sort of stay focused on that market, but also sort of picking your battles, doing things very quickly, iterating, failing fast. We failed a lot. We have 2 products that have recurring revenue right now. We've launched probably 20 products since I started my company 3.5 years ago. So that means 18 have failed, entirely failed, flat on their face. But I learned very quickly how to get that product cycle down to about 2 weeks.
Great. I'd like to state for the record that 32 is not old. But
How old are you? Were you stated?
31.
Okay. See, I'm still the oldest person.
You're ancient.
Oh.
So, Bryan, same question?
Sure. In some ways, I agree with the rest of the panelists. In other ways, I don't quite. But the industry that I'm in is primarily government and first responder. I spent, for the last 10 years or so, I've been involved in emergency preparedness, emergency response. I spent actually time here at Carnegie Mellon and also in the city of Pittsburgh working on ambulance. And I got a real appreciation for what happens during a disaster versus just what happens during a 16-hour day running around an ambulance. And I think it's not, the iterative cycles are very important. It's very important to understand what your customer wants, but it's also very important to be in a position of knowledge about your customer. One of the things that we really pride ourselves on is having the solution solved for the customer before they even realize they have the issues. And so, the individuals that work for Collaborative Fusion, they're all immersed in about a 6-month training program where we go through a series of exercises where we teach them incident command systems. We teach them some basic first aid. We do all of these sorts of courses which have absolutely nothing to do with programming a piece of software, just sitting in front of a computer, but which ensure that when a client calls or someone calls and says, I'm having a problem doing X, they understand they can put themselves in the position of that client and say, I understand why you're trying to do that, and here's where the problems are, or I understand what you're trying to do, and gee, that doesn't look right, let me see what I can do about fixing it. So I think, not only is it important to be, in a position where you're able to rapidly put out changes, but also you need to be in a position where you understand exactly what it is that your customer wants. Especially in the government and also in the safety folks, they may not be the most educated of individuals. Some of them are, there's lots of PhD government folks, but there's also lots of first responders who never went to college. And so you have to understand the market and the education level of your individuals as well when you're developing your applications.
Thanks. Nathan, you touched on a key theme here. You said how important it is to get the right group of people around you. One of the things I was wanting to discuss with you is, as a young entrepreneur or as a student, some of you, how do you find those key people, and how do you attract them to come and join your company when you're just maybe a couple guys with a business plan, maybe you don't have the funding to attract top talent? How do you do that? So maybe we could start with you.
Sure, and this will be from my experience, so you can ignore all of this. But I started my company with 3 people. There were 3 of us founders. 2 of them are gone. They chose not to do it. So I had to stick it out. My first 2 engineers in my company have since been fired. They were fantastic engineers, former heads at Marconi, like they led project teams, but they were not good at our company. So finding that right mix is critical. And that means, we have an open office. We have 8 people. They sit around together at desks. They have to roll their chair over to the next person and say, can you help me with this thing? Some people try strategies like 2 people working at 1 computer. All of these things require people to have very good communication skills. So for example, we hire very slowly. We hire almost entirely organically. So we try not to do job postings, we just sort of do word of mouth. And we're lucky enough that we've been able to recruit people from Yahoo and from Apple who have left those companies to, Yahoo everyone leaves, but who have left those companies to come to us. So it's not that big deal. But he did leave San Francisco to come to Pittsburgh, so that's fairly impressive. So the challenge then is retaining those people. And I'm happy to say that we do a great job of that, primarily because we build a culture that people that are, I've always tried to build a company, especially after that first year, that I would want to work at, because I want to hire people like me, people who are passionate about what they do, want to do great work, and don't want to just sort of sit through the day until 5 o'clock rolls around because and waste their day on Facebook, right? I want people who just want to get things out and deliver them as fast as possible. So we have, for our company and our style of company, we deliver things really quickly, which means people feel a sense of ownership. Everyone interacts face-to-face with clients when we have them. We set really short goals. We want people to feel like, one, they have a sense of ownership, not just in stock, but in products, feel like they're really making something. And people who are great at building stuff across disciplines, art, business, whatever, want to have that sense of ownership in that they're building something cool that people are going to use or try to use. So really for me, it's been about building a culture that just attracts those people. I try to do that locally, which has worked really well. I think as you scale up to larger size companies, it gets really hard. I had an investor tell me once, you're hiring A-grade people. The second, people maybe know this. A-grade people, once they start to hire B-grade people start to hire C-grade people, and you just start sort of going down. And firing my first employee was really challenging to do. I'm lucky that most of my employees I was able to find jobs at other companies and place them where they were more adequately positioned to be. But that's a really hard thing, and I think you have to be able to ignore things like resumes. I don't interview based on a resume. I don't interview based on a college, and I don't interview based on a QPA or a GPA. I interview based on whether or not I can talk and have a conversation with someone. They can tell me what they're actually good at. They can tell me what their one thing in life is that they're great at, and they can tell me what the last thing they programmed for.
Sure. David, let's jump down to you. Perhaps as our youngest entrepreneur on the panel, has age ever been a challenge for you, attracting top talent, and how have you dealt with that?
Yeah, I would say age is a challenge in business in general sometimes, up to a certain point. I remember when I was, when I was 12 or 13, and I had to.
It's ridiculous.
It's upsetting. Back then, my company actually owned a data center, and we leased a basement space of an internet service provider and made that into our data center. And we had to hire technicians to sort of maintain that data center and deal with all the equipment there. And I actually asked my dad for help here because I felt kind of it would be unusual for being a 12-year-old to go out there and interview people, and there would be potential issues with that. But I think after you sort of, when you reach college age, and especially if you've proven yourself a little bit with some experience in working and starting businesses as well, it's much easier to sort of show that you're a capable person and people respect you as long as you're able to do everything everyone else is. In terms of finding students to work with you, that's been a pretty challenging task. Fooala is a pretty young company, but we've actually had about 14 or 15 different people work with our team, and our current team size is about 5 people. When you're a student, you have to sort of deal with a lot of noise in that a lot of students will say that they're very interested in working with your company, and they'll really try hard to sell themselves, but they're really not ready to work in this kind of situation in a startup business because it takes a lot. So what I've done is really look for students who have past experience, either starting a business or even starting an organization or some effort that really has had results, and go from there. Also, a personal network is really important. Some of our team, I met our Microsoft interns because I interned at Microsoft, and that sort of served as a screening device too. If they have an internship at Microsoft, sure, they have this minimum level of competency.
Great. Well, now that we all feel like underachievers here, Jessica or Bryan, do you have anything to add to this question of how do you retain or how do you attract and retain key employees? Maybe when you don't have a huge budget, maybe don't have a huge track record of success for your company.
When I was in my second company, let's see, it would have been. Anyway, when I was doing my second company, one of the problems I had was primarily a web development firm. So this was back in '94, '95. And one of the problems that I had was on the phone, had no problem dealing with the clients, but you show up and you're 14, 15, you say, hey, I'm showing up at AT&T and I'm saying I'm going to build your website for you. And they say, well, no, you're not, where's your dad? And I said, no, it's not like that. One of the things I found was very helpful is I actually hired somebody who was about 20 years older than me, and she came with me to the meetings, and that seemed to get me in the door a lot better. But I think the key to retaining talent, or really in anything, is you can no longer build a company from just one person. Back in the 60s and 70s, I think there were, it was easier in some respects to say, you've got a fantastic idea, worry about the team later, just kind of put it together and go for it. These days, it's all about having a team of people around you who complement you. You don't want to have a team of 5 programmers. That's not going to get you anywhere. You guys all think like programmers, or girls. You want to have somebody who's good at marketing. You want to have somebody who's good at operations, programming, finance, whatever it is. You don't have to have all of the things that you need, but you should have a little bit of variation. Some of the nastiest fights and arguments I've had are with people who have come to become not only good friends of mine, but also fantastic employees and partners, simply because we have differing opinions, and that's what makes the companies better. That sort of not violent, but that strong discourse about where people have differing opinions. That's how great ideas are come out of a company. And I think it's really important to have that type of give and take whenever you're looking for employees.
Ask me in 2 years. I'm still trying to figure it out.
Well, we'll switch questions then for you. You all have the common thread that you all were either at CMU or affiliated with CMU. What resources would you say have helped you the most being affiliated with CMU in the course of starting your business and running your business?
Me start?
Let's start with you.
Well, I definitely wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today without Carnegie Mellon. I was really, really inspired. Starting a company just sort of happened. I was going through the Masters of Entertainment Technology program and just had a hunch that I should come up here and spend a lot of time in this classroom, and so I did. I took probably 10 or 12 courses in marketing, finance, and entrepreneurship here while I was doing my my other Masters in Entertainment Technology. And so I was just really, really inspired by what was going on at the ETC and wanted to figure out how we could apply all of that coolness and expertise to problems in other industries. And so, the resources in not only Carnegie Mellon, but in the community, the Pittsburgh business community, people are, there's like one person that I really wanted to get a meeting with, and I just couldn't get a meeting. I mean, people are just so accessible and willing to help, and talking with other students. And the faculty is really, really great. The administration is really, really great. Different departments, so.
Sure.
Can't say enough.
Nathan, you kind of came at this from a completely different angle from the art program. What was your experience like, and what resources were there for you?
It's actually an experience I'm trying to see change. We run an artist residency program, and while CMU is fantastic, unfortunately, coming out of the College of Fine Arts, I did my undergraduate there. Then I came back in 2004 as an artist in residence. Was there for 3 years running a research project for 2 years. And when I was there and sort of technology transfer came to me, Rob Conway, who was there, is no longer there, came to me and said, hey, we have some interest in this mapping stuff you're doing. So I thought, okay, well, I don't know what that means. I don't know what technology transfer is. I don't even know who owns my intellectual property. And truly, College of Fine Arts is pretty clueless as to who owns their intellectual property. But you find out really quickly that the university kind of does. And you got to license it or get them to sign off and say, you can take this with you and it doesn't matter. Typically in the art department, everything that you sort of say, I invented this thing, tech transfer comes back and says, we don't really care about it, it's great, it's art, and you can have it. That didn't happen in our case because mapping was sort of hot at the time and we had this online mapping software. So then I sort of was introduced very quickly to the world over here, right, that I knew nothing about, and at tech transfer. I think CMU was hugely helpful. I think the art department needs to learn how to educate students, and I talked to the Dean, Hillary Robinson, a lot about this in sustainable arts practice, because artists are very much micro businesses. They run their own marketing, they run their own accounting, they bill out themselves, and they manage their own entity, but they forget that often whenever they go and try to get funding or to sustain whatever their arts practice is, so they end up in academia.
Sure.
And so we have an artist residency program that gets our artists mingling with a lot of our customers, and we try to employ them through our customers and our clients, and we've been successful at that. But CMU, initially, I'll make it really lame, was useful as a brand. Carnegie Mellon, as a name, got me in doors that I wouldn't have normally gotten into. I was in a Morgan Stanley conference that was invite only, and people would talk to me because I had a Carnegie Mellon business card. Otherwise, they would not have, and that's sad to say, but it's truly useful. And when you're starting a business, you use everything you possibly can to your advantage. So I used that business card whenever I could. And it is very, very valuable. This is a very prestigious university, you know that, so you need to rely on that name a little bit when you start a company, especially when you're fundraising.
In the interest of time, I think we're going to ask one more question, and we're going to ask it of all the panelists here. And that is, what piece of advice would you give to either students who are thinking about starting a business or any first-time entrepreneur based on your experiences and maybe some of the mistakes that you guys have made along the way? And we'll start here with Bryan.
Thanks. What can I say? It takes, and I think all of you've heard this, it takes at least twice as long as you think and 4 times as much money, something like that. Keep going. It takes usually 6 or 8 times as long as you think and probably 10 times as much money as you need. You can really almost never raise enough, and you always want to be raising it when you don't need it. They've learned that lesson now probably 2 or 3 times, and it doesn't get any easier the second or third time around. It's absolutely critical because that's what you're going to need to sustain your business. And the companies that can sustain themselves over 5, 10 years are the ones that really succeed. We've switched business models now 3 or 4 times, and the only way we were able to do that until we finally hit on the one that was going to be successful was that we had enough money behind us in terms of burn rate to be able to keep going.
Nathan?
Sure. Learn what you're good at and learn what your passion is and build a company around that, and your likelihood of success is far greater. That's my lesson.
It's a good one. Jessica?
Hang out with your customers.
Oh, no.
What?
I hate my customers.
I love my customers. You know, I just,
Better
Do you
than me.
hate your customers?
Yeah, many. Depends on which genre.
you know,
I have a transit product.
you know, I guess like in software development, you know, same way, I think of a business plan is the same way.
Yeah.
If you don't know why, viscerally why
They want
each
it.
component of your business plan is in there, then you need to go find out why.
And David?
Yep. I would just say if you have a great idea that you're passionate about, or if you have something you want to start, go out there and talk to people about it. Go out there and get different perspectives. One of the best things we did was going to Project Olympus and getting some feedback right away, and they made some key introductions for us to get to where we are today. And don't be afraid of what people have to say about your company, because you're going to hear about it when you start it anyways.
Can I add one thing?
Sure.
So while you're here, the one thing that I didn't do enough when I was an undergrad that I think is hugely valuable is I rely a lot, I said, on artists, and I really do. And I think that unfortunately people specialize so much that they start to sort of, hopefully you interact with art students and drama students and everything else you actually have while you're here at the university. Because once you end up at a company and a team of software engineers, it's going to get harder to do that. And if you truly want to innovate, you need to have perspectives from people that think differently than you. That's how innovation actually happens, by combining different perspectives about things. So have great experiences and befriend people that have great experiences that are different than your own. And that's something that you can do at a university that's really hard to do once you leave the university. So do that while you're here and try to retain those relationships. I did not, unfortunately.
That's great advice. Well, at this point, we're going to open it up to Q&A. So if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, actually, my question is directly at you only, but you kind of hit on it in the beginning. You were talking about you have to go out to your 80 restaurants and kind of visit them. So on initial rollouts, like especially being in school, like what's the process that you guys have seen that happen, or would you guys encourage? Because that's kind of my biggest issue with that initial.
Oh, you mean what is the process to get from?
Like you created, like people like it or whatever, but like you're kind of a smaller business, you're not really going to do a national rollout because nobody knows what it is you're trying to do. So are you just going to one company, or are you like fishing around? Do you talk to people? What is your...
I guess that depends on what kind of business you're running and your business model and who's your target customer. And one of the ways to find out in the beginning is to go out and get different perspectives and meet with potential customers and see if there's a good fit and if it's feasible. For us, we wanted to make it possible for basically any mom and pop restaurant, all the way up to franchise restaurants, to be able to have online e-commerce solutions. So we went out there and visited restaurants, and I guess how we got to go out there and actually get those customers was when we entered into the business incubator program at Alpha Lab, part of Innovation Works. We set goals with them that by the end of the Alpha Lab term, we wanted to be making some revenue and have a certain number of customers. And then we devised a plan to go out there and do just that. And for the longest time before that, we were sort of stalling and wondering how we could develop our product more before we go out and get those customers. But it was pretty important for us to go out there and get feedback.
So you're saying just go out and do it?
Yeah,
basically.
Well, that works here. I guess it depends on your business. If you're making a medical device, you can't just go out and sample your customers.
It's a little different. It's a little different. But how would you get those first customers to take your calls and to meet with you?
For us, we actually used the Carnegie Mellon name.
Okay.
When we went to our first restaurants, we told them we're a company that's starting out of Carnegie Mellon University, and we wanted them to be one of our first customers. And at the time, we had some press coverage, some newspaper articles about me and the business, and we also showed them this, and that sort of made them more comfortable about discussing a business relationship. Okay. And it made it seem like we're someone sort of credible and not just a random somebody popping in.
More questions? Way in the back.
You need to discuss your idea with a lot of people. Now, like if this idea is innovative and it is something different, and it is very easy for someone to take that idea and implement it actually. There are already experienced people in that particular field, those who are doing a lot of work in that. And if they get to know this, they maybe use that idea and make something bigger before you can actually get your hands on it. So what do you suggest in such a
I feel like there's a tendency for entrepreneurs to feel like their ideas are the biggest secret ever, and they need to keep it to themselves, and no one else can know about it. Otherwise, everyone else that hears about it is going to make the same thing. But if the only thing that in your business that has value that's difficult to do is keeping that one idea secret, then you know, people can still duplicate that idea, and it's probably something that needs to be developed further, in my opinion.
Anybody else have thoughts on that question?
I agree with you, but there's also, you know, a time crunch. You know, if you, yeah, it's easy to implement it if you understand the market, understand how to get it to market, have the financing, have the development behind you. And so someone that is driving and building this, you know, they probably have 18 months to really get it to the next, you know, get a head start. So I think that, you know, you do have to be motivated with some urgency to prioritize what the 2 or 3 things we need to do in order to get it to this stage in 6 months or whatever, and then another 6 months or whatever. I focus a lot on that still now. And so I don't know if that helps it a little bit.
Like if I get a head start, it would be a benefit for me. Then I think it would be difficult for other people to catch up. But till that time, you want that idea to be with you and a select group of people, not everybody.
Yeah, I mean, and also define your head start. Does your head, you know, is your head start towards a patent or towards some sort of technology development you've done, or having, you know, getting into a good subset of the market, or whatever, intellectual property.
You know, I think it's important to understand patent law, but I'm not a big, huge patent fan, primarily from in the software world, and there's so much time involved there, and I feel like 2 years from now or 3 years from now, the world is entirely different. So you begin that. We have a product now. When we do consulting work, we retain all the IP to most of the work that we do, and we have a company that's spinning out now that's basically implementing this thing called Chalkbot that we built for Nike that sprays messages on the ground. That's a very specific hardware IP. There's some hardware IP associated with that. But I really feel like with ideas, you should be willing to throw them out there and race to finish them, because everyone's having ideas. Are not the idea of the epiphany. I'm really not into. Like, I feel like my ideas come from a whole bunch of other things that I know and experience, and you build upon them. And then the only thing that makes you different is if you finish them, because everyone has ideas all the time. But if you're the first to finish it, you know, kudos to you. You're going to get something out there, and it may fail, but just do it. Otherwise, that's why everyone sits around and says, "Oh, I could have invented that, or I could have drawn that." Well, you didn't, right? And whoever did won. So that's the thing.
Yeah, they put in the work.
Yeah, put in the work. It takes work.
Question up here?
When you deal with mentors, and I guess I'm really interested in you, Steve, because of your company. When you deal with mentors, what mechanism do you use to determine or distinguish between good advice and bad advice, especially when you get conflicting advice?
Are you asking because Art's not here anymore? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But I'll actually defer that to the panel, but just quickly to answer, I would say that the best advice in the early stages for us was advice that was free. When somebody approaches you and wants a piece of your company or wants some compensation in return for being an advisor or being a board member when you're very early, it's usually going to be bad advice. But I'll pass it off to the panel if anybody wants to answer that.
I think first off, you have to find a mentor that, or a group of mentors that fit what you're trying to do. If you're like me, making software, and the people that are your mentors are, I don't know, they build hardware, that may not be the right group of people. Once you find that sort of group, I think the person or the individuals who give you not just free advice, but advice that seems to make a logical sense towards whatever your business goals are the ones that you want to follow. I mean, if your gut tells you that it's wrong, it may be that they're not understanding what it is that you're asking, or you're trying to get information on, or they may have some alternate agenda. We had I've experienced that in two companies where the people that I thought were trying to help me weren't helping me at all. They just had an alternate plan and they wanted me to fit into it. And so you kind of have to keep that in mind.
Anyone else?
Say something. We have. Are we gonna go?
Go ahead.
I talk a lot. We I feel like you have to sort of hone your instincts and get really smart about who you pay attention to. I actually forgot what I was going to say, so that was made up because I was thinking about you. So never mind.
All right, we'll move on then. In the back.
I have a
Can you talk about idea generation while you're a student? Because like often as a student, you're kind of encased in a bubble, and you don't really see other opportunities out there. So how do you come up with ideas?
Who wants to answer this one? David, you look like you're.
I mean,
all over that one.
to start, I think it's really important to read a lot and kind of be up to date with what's going on around the world, and look at what other businesses are doing, what's going on there, and also sometimes you can just come up with an idea out of nowhere and sort of explore around that. I mean, there's I guess I don't really have very specific advice on that.
I'll give you one. Listen a bunch. If you're walking around campus and you hear a bunch of people complaining about the same thing, you might have an idea there. I'm not saying you do, but it's possible. You want to target where people's pain points are, and what are people gonna, what are people unhappy about, and sometimes those things can translate into businesses.
Sure. How about right here?
Being in college, especially CMU, how did you or do you manage between coursework and running or starting a company or trying to start?
It's 24 hours in a day.
Don't sleep a whole lot.
I guess since I'm still a student, I was fortunate enough that I'm studying something that's very relevant to what I'm working on. Information systems and software development is very relevant, and I tried to get all my professors involved in what I was doing as a business, so they'll be supportive of what I'm working on, and that has helped a bit. Of course, I think some majors are more difficult than others in terms of time commitment, and it's definitely difficult to get a balance there.
Right there.
To talk a little bit, if you could, about the steps you all took in just funding and how you are funding your ventures up to this point. Some of the major stumbling blocks, some of the sort of big sort of rules of thumb, and maybe some insight for people who are interested in kind of following on that.
Has anyone on our panel raised venture funding? You have? Maybe we could start there.
So there's really, they divide money into basically three stages. You got your friends, family, your angel, and your venture money. Each come with different fun pieces. Your friends and family money, obviously, you're taking people's money that you know, so there's the guilt trip aspect involved. And it's generally the earliest stage of money, so you're not, it's the most risky. People talk a lot about smart money and dumb money. The biggest thing that I can offer to that is that I was working, we were raising money, and we had two, I wouldn't say competing offers, but two different offers. And one was somebody who was really interested in the technology, didn't care so much about the people, was not at Pittsburgh, was not somebody who was around Pittsburgh, and they had a slightly better deal. We actually ended up taking the other deal, who was not that, because they were local individuals and they really believed in the team. When it comes to introductions and when it comes to people that you need to meet in order to get your business off the ground, you really want to evaluate. I mean, these individuals may be giving you money, but you're also using them for their connections. And so you want to find people that have cash that can give you and open doors that you otherwise couldn't get to. Venture capital firms are very good at that as well. When you get to the later stages, people that can open doors for you are critical.
Sure. Let's try to squeeze in a few more questions here, and then I think we might have to get moving on, but let's go here.
This is for Nathan. You have a lot of experience with consulting. Have you ever considered building a personal brand versus a business?
We actually, so we're a company business model that's never supposed to exist, but we managed to raise like $500,000 under it. And at this point, this year, we're going to close with $1 million of revenue this year, which is great for us. So what we do is our business model that's so screwy is that we do this consulting side of development. We try to build a brand out of it. The reason we build a brand is primarily so that we can compete with advertising agencies and try to go directly to clients, advertisers, so that we can do development work, then retain the IP, and ideally license or commercialize that IP. Very much like a university model. We're very much like an art group / a university research project. No, I don't think our brand's worth anything right now, other than our personal marketing, which we pay a lot of attention to. The other I'd say about marketing is we pay attention to everyone that writes about us or blogs about us. We document everyone if they have a position that we care about. We send them personal letters, T-shirts, and we stay in touch with them. And from that, we've been able to get our writing. I write a lot about sort of design and interaction. We get that published in industry magazines and stuff. So we sort of stay. Our brand does matter to us primarily just in retaining new clients or getting new clients.
Great. Let's go right here.
This is part of comment, part of question. There was a lot of discussion about listening to the customer. I'd like to point out an alternative perspective, and I want to get your opinion on it. Sometimes I've found that you want to do opposite of listening to the customer. You want to lead the customer and show the customer things that they're not seeing. And a perfect example of that, I had a mentor, so I have a lot of great stories. The perfect example of that is Polaroid. What do their customers want? Oh, can you make it come out faster? It comes out faster. Can you make it color? It comes out with color. Can you make it sing when you click the button? It did that. Nobody was asking for digital. Nobody knew what that was. So can you comment about that aspect of actually going against the grain and actually showing the customer what they don't even want it yet because it doesn't exist?
I can take a stab at that.
Sure.
Because we're going through that. We have gone through that. We're going through that now as we sort of enter the market in a big way with our products. We're trying to sell disruptive technology. They're used to doing things one way. They're used to buying things one way. They're used to results one way. And trying to go in and figure that out is something you have to pay attention to, but really figure out ways to ask them questions and lead them along to what the solution is. If you're solving their, like my product, for instance, at the end of the day, it has nothing to do with video games at all. It has to do with significantly reducing time of training and accidents and behaviors. And these are things that companies call me about a lot. Large utility companies will say, we've got guys in the field, we've got to have flexible, we can't let these guys do electrical work for the first, they can't go wrong. So how do we solve that? I don't know if that helps, but really understanding how things work now and then working from there. The Polaroid is a good example.
I use this phrase squinting at technology a lot, which is really about like I want to work with people who don't understand what a piece of technology is designed or its purpose or its rule set is, but can squint at it and figure out what its opportunity is. We have clients, it's one of the benefits of working with clients. Clients walk into our door all the time and say, I need an iPhone app, I need a Facebook app, I need a whatever, right? And there are many people who will sell them those things. But if you can truly listen, and I think we mean listening in a way of just not asking them to say, I need it black, and I need it to spin, and I need it to emote, and just saying, what is it they really need? And that's what I think your Polaroid example does. Can you figure out what the real sort of pain is and what they're really trying to get at? And if you can do that, for us, we try to do it with our clients, and then it helps us sort of think about it in our own products as well. But that's the hard thing. You really like to see what do they really mean by that?
Also, the whole adoption curve plays into this. You know, we sort of analyze the psychology of who's going to get on board early on, and then we focus our time on them. Because it's not going to be, you know, when the iPhone first comes out, everyone's not going to buy it. They're going to wait a while, and then the adopters will slowly, and then, you know, sooner or later, it's like, well, yeah, it's obvious. Everyone's doing it. So.
Yeah, this is the book, Crossing the Chasm.
That's right, Crossing the Chasm, exactly. Exactly.
Sure. I think we have a question way in the back. Oh, I'm sorry. One more question, way in the back.
You mentioned that it might take sometimes 2 to 6 times as long as you plan on the night to get to market. So now my question is, especially earlier on, how do you go then devising and managing an exit or backup plan if you're going to, you know, if I'm going to extend it for 3 to 6 weeks or more, at what point should I say, maybe it's not working out, I should go with something else?
So the question is, how do you know when to say when to call it a day?
How do you go about designing a backup plan that's going to meet your particular needs so that, you know, if you keep on extending your deadline, you know when you should possibly go for the backup plan?
That's a good question. Who wants to take that one?
Well, you're making progress, as long as you're making progress.
Yeah, I think, you know, one of the themes that I think we all kind of agree with is, you know, incremental progress towards some goal. As long as you're heading in the right direction, you know, and you can keep yourself funded to go that direction, you should be okay. You know, if you spend too much time thinking about what your backup plan is, then you're not spending enough time on what your actual plan is, and then you're in just as much trouble.
You're in it or you're not.
Yeah, exactly.
You're in it or you're not.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like, for me, that's why I have attention deficit disorder, basically. And that's why I work with software and things that I can deploy really quickly, because I've been in that case. I spent 2.5 years as a researcher. Before that, I came here to implement this idea that I've been working on since 2000. I want people to put points on a map and share it, right? And I have the experience of spending 5 years of my adult life trying to commercialize this thing, right? 1 year as a company, 3 years or trying to get this thing out and get people to use it. We never had real use. So that's a really bad failure. Good failures are what I have right now. So don't have a failure where you're not able to see, like, when someone can actually use this thing, right? In my case, I'm not able to deal with that. In some cases, you know, medical devices, clearly, you have to have a really long vision and have the patience that I don't have. But that's why I'm attracted to my industry, because I can move very quickly, fail quickly. So I never want to see that 6-year thing happen. Like, if that starts to happen, I'm out. I'm on a new idea.
Well, on that note, we're going to wrap it up. But thank you all for your questions, and thanks to our panel. Let's give them a hand.